Okay, so here we are with Unit 2, Lesson 3. And if you remember back to the previous lesson, we said that atoms generally have the same number of protons as electrons. That's what makes atoms neutral. There are occasions where atoms are not neutral anymore, and they're really, at that point, not called an atom. They are called an ion. So we're going to look at how atoms, or what happens when an atom becomes an ion. So if it's a neutral atom, and here's how you know it's a neutral atom. If you look at the symbol here, notice that there's nothing here. That tells you that it's neutral. If you look at this next one here, notice that there's a -1. Well, that tells you that this is an ion. And because it's a -1, it's called a negative ion, which is called an anion. Now, what does that mean? And here's where it confuses people all the time. When you see negative, you think something was lost, and that's common sense. However, chemistry is a little bit different, and here's why. Because it is the number of protons versus electrons. Now, if you remember back, and this is probably going to mess things up, but I'm going to do it anyway. This has fluorine, usually has an atomic mass of 19 and an atomic number of 9. If it was neutral, it would have 9 protons. To get the neutrons, we do the mass number minus the atomic number, 10 neutrons. And it would have 9 electrons. They're equal to each other. But this is telling you not that it lost an electron, that's telling you that it gained one electron. So what you simply do is you go back and say, okay, normally it has 9 electrons. Now, because it gained 1, it's going to have 10 electrons. So now you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, so why does that make it a -1? Well, if you look at the number of protons, which does not change, it's the electrons that change. You notice that they are no longer equal. You have one extra negative charge. That's why it's a negative ion. The opposite of that would be if you had a particle like, let's get rid of that. Keep doing that. Okay, so here we have this one here. Notice now it's a +1. So obviously +1 means that it actually lost 1 electron. So normally lithium would have 3 protons and 3 electrons. But if you subtract 1 electron from it, it's now going to have 2 electrons. So a lithium ion has 3 protons in its nucleus because the protons don't change, but it has lost 1 electron. That makes it only 2 electrons. So now it has 1 more positively charged proton. That's why it's a +1. So you have to remember, if it's a -1, if it's a negative ion, it's gained electrons. So if it's a -2 ion, it gained 2 electrons. If it's a +2 ion, that means it actually lost electrons. So you need to make note of that somewhere. Negative ion means it gained electrons. Positive ions means it lost electrons. Okay? And we're going to stop that one there.